Know then it is the year 2021. Two houses, House Davis and House Coles, begin a journey to Arrakis, also known as Dune.
You rocked that intro.
Eat shit, Virginia Madsen.
You absolutely rocked that, Carol. I'm Mia.
Well, thank you, Mia.
We are here for Refried Scenes Dune edition.
That's right. We were going to do the Villages of the Damned, but Dune came out, so we decided we'd do Dune instead. We had always planned to do Dune when Dune was released into the theaters.
Are you going to try to work in how many times you can say Dune?
Take a drink every time we say Dune, and you'll be dead before this podcast is over. Okay, so we started in 1984 with David Lynch's Dune. Take a drink. So people seem to think that David Lynch was like an established director when he got this job, but this was only his third film. And his first color film. So it was not... We're going to hear a cat, probably. He has opinions, too.
Yes, our cat is Agent Cooper, who was portrayed in the TV series by Kyle MacLachlan, and so he feels like he should be...
He should be part of this podcast because Kyle MacLachlan plays Paul Atreides in David Lynch's Dune, which, like I said, came out in 1984. This is... I'm going to try and condense this plot. For those of you who have read the book Dune, it is incredibly detailed. It's masterful world building. I absolutely love the book. It's just dense and very political and very... There are so many subplots in the book. It's kind of hard to condense them into a movie. But David Lynch tried. He tried very hard. And what we got in 1984 was a lot of voiceovers. You have Kyle MacLachlan as Paul Atreides, Jürgen Prochnow as his father, Duke Leto, Kevin McMillan, is it Kenneth McMillan as Baron Harkonnen, and you got a lot of people in this movie. Patrick Stewart's in there for a little bit. Sting is in there, and his codpiece.
Sean Young.
Oh god, Sean Young. So Dune basically is a political space opera that deals with two great houses, House Atreides and House Harkonnen. And I'm using the pronunciation that are used in this movie right now. And they're two great houses in the Landstrat. And right now, the universe, it's the year 10,191, and the universe is ruled by Emperor Shaddam IV. And he's worried that Duke Leto Atreides from the House Atreides is getting way too popular and too mouthy, basically. And he wants to have him killed. But he can't just do that outright. So what he does is he gives stewardship to the planet Arrakis to the Atreides family. Now, Arrakis, otherwise known as Dune, has previously been under the stewardship of the Harkonnens, who is led by Baron Harkonnen, who's disgusting and has boils all over his face, and his two nephews, Raban, who is disgusting and eats raw meat on occasion, and Fade, who is played by Sting and who doesn't like to wear a lot of clothes. Look, this is a tough one to condense. So the Emperor gives Dune to the Atreides, but then he also tells the Baron that he's going to lend him several troops of his assassin. They're called the Sardaukar. And they're basically trained from a very early age to just be lethal assassins. He's going to give him a couple troops to help swoop in and eradicate the Atreides. Involved in this is the Space Navigation Guild, which in David Lynch's version...
A lot of moving parts.
Yeah, a lot of moving parts. In David Lynch's version, you get to see a flight navigator, or a space navigator. It's this large, disgusting creature with a vagina for a mouth, and they want Paul Atreides in particular to be killed. And there's a very specific reason for this, because Paul, who is the son of Leto and Jessica, is thought to be the Kwisatz Haderach, which is a super being that has been kind of the Bene Gesserit, which is a religious order in this world.
Oh boy. You taking notes, guys?
They've been crossing bloodlines hoping to breed the Kwisatz Haderach, which is a super being that can go backwards and forwards in time and space without the need of basically ships. So they think Paul is the one.
He's Neo from Matrix.
Yes, much like that. And the Navigation Guild wants him killed. They don't specify why in this movie. And it probably was a mistake seeing a navigator because, man, that does not... It's kind of gross.
Yeah.
But anyway, the Atreides family go to Arrakis. They attempt to set up shop, but very quickly the Harkonnens come in. They kill Leto. The Atreides are betrayed by Dr. Yui, who is their imperial doctor, who drugs Paul and Jessica and drugs Leto and gives him like a poison tooth and says, "Could you kill the Baron for me?" Because the Baron has tortured his wife. But Leto gets the wrong guy, doesn't kill the Baron, ends up dead, and Paul and Jessica are thrown into the desert where the Harkonnens believe they're killed because Arrakis is an incredibly...
The climate is not
It's not hospitable. You can't live in the desert very long. You need a still suit, which is made by the Fremen, who are the indigenous people of Arrakis. A still suit will capture all of your body moisture and gives you something to drink. So Paul and Jessica are exiled to the desert. They are found by Stilgar and his Fremen, and they are kind of immediately accepted. Jessica shows a little bit of moxie and beats somebody up, but they're almost immediately accepted into this troop. And Paul meets Chani, who he's been having a lot of dreams with. And not with. He dreams with her later. But he's been dreaming about her for a while, and she asks him about his homeworld. "Tell me of your homeworld, Usul." I can't stand Sean Young in this thing. I really don't like her performance. We quickly... From that point on, we very quickly move. The movie moves very quickly. Paul trains the Fremen to be this huge attack force. They disrupt spice production, and spice is incredibly necessary because spice is what is used by the navigators to fold space. So they can't go interstellar without spice. So you can't have spice production disrupted in any way. But Paul and his Fremen League, they disrupt the spice. They ride sandworms. It's really 1984 graphics. It's really bad.
Everything is very phallic.
Oh god, yeah. Everything in this movie is sexual. The Emperor eventually has to swoop in and take over because spice production has been disrupted. He kills Raban and tells the Baron that, he's losing control. And that's when Paul's little sister, okay, back up a little bit. We got to talk about the water of life. So, Bene Gesserit, on Arrakis, the Bene Gesserit witch will drink the water of life to become, I guess, more enlightened. The water of life is the essence of Shai-Hulud, which is the sandworms that they ride. So Paul's mother, Jessica, drinks the water of life while she's pregnant. Don't do this at home, ladies. Gives premature birth to Paul's sister, Aliyah, who is born complete with all of the knowledge of the Bene Gesserit. Aliyah's a creepy little kid. So Paul's mother is now a Reverend Mother to the Fremen. Paul is their terrorist leader, basically, and they disrupt spice production on Arrakis. The Emperor swoops in, kills Raban, takes over, but it doesn't matter because Paul, comes in and challenges whoever the Emperor wants to put forward as his champion, challenges them to a fight to the death. And it ends up being Sting, and Paul wins, and then it rains on Arrakis. Am I missing anything?
I am so glad that you're doing the rundown for this. It was my turn, and Carol said, "Do you want me to do it?" And I said, "Yes." I cannot do this. No, I mean, you got a lot.
Yeah, the Baron is killed by Ilea. She pushes him into the mouth of a sandworm who probably had indigestion for a week after eating the Baron. This is a very Lynchian film.
It is.
He has a very unique vision.
And I'm a fan of David Lynch.
So am I. I'm a big fan of David Lynch. I don't think this is his best work by any stretch. Like I said, this was his first big budget film. It was his first film in color.
Why did this get such a huge following?
It's like a cult following. You have to understand, when this movie was released, I saw this in the theater when it was released. And I'm not joking when I tell you, because at that time, Dune was kind of a cult classic book. If you were really into sci-fi, you had to read Dune. And I like the book a lot. It's probably one of my favorite sci-fi books. When I went to see Dune, David Lynch's Dune, as you walked into the theater, they handed you this cheat sheet of terms and a couple of character bios.
I love thinking about studying when I go sit down with my popcorn to watch a movie.
And they left the house lights just on enough so you could refer to this sheet whenever you didn't understand what somebody said.
Oh, that's precious.
What is so funny and why I watch this movie regularly, it's so earnest in its attempt to get everything from the book in there, except for the last third of it, because at that point, David Lynch was like, I'm not doing that, forget it. And he just built his own ending.
Okay. I did not read the book.
Yeah.
The first time that I watched the movie, I was probably too young, because I probably saw it mid-90s. And everything looked like a gross vagina. Not just a vagina, but a gross vagina. Okay?
You're diseased.
Yes. With the ships flying out of it and everything.
Yeah.
It was just, come on.
Yeah.
And I was like, really? This is just too gross. So I didn't enjoy it. And then I watched it again a few years later, but that made all the difference. Like, when you're 14 and when you're 18, you have
different views.
Different views. So I enjoyed it at that time, and I very much enjoyed it when we watched it.
I find this movie funny, because like 50% of it is people walking around with an earnest look on their face while their inner monologue tells you what is going on.
Yes.
There's so much inner monologue in this movie.
There's so much voiceover.
Whenever anyone does anything, a lot of times their inner monologue will tell you what's going on while you're watching it happen on the screen. And you're like, we're watching it. We can get it. But he feels the need to put everything in there. And so you just have this wall-to-wall just exposition. And
I kind of think it further complicates.
It does.
There's
a lot
experience.
There's a lot of minor things that he puts in there. I remember when I first watched it, because Piter de Vries, who's played by Brad Dourif, uses the phrase "the art of cannily," and in the book, it's kind of a chivalric thing. It's not a huge part of the book, and in the movie, it's completely useless. But here I am in this dark theater, looking on this cheat sheet, going, "What the hell is the art of cannily?" And it means nothing, but he's just throwing that term in there because it was in the book.
I see. And
you get a lot of that in Lynch's version. And because because Dune is like 900, 700, 800 pages. It's a huge book. He squashes everything in there. And then it's obvious he didn't like the ending of the book where Paul goes on a holy war. So he trashed that, and Paul does become the savior of Arrakis, and it starts raining, which to me was just like, oh, come on.
I liked the ending.
Well, I will say, I love the soundtrack to this film. Toto did the soundtrack, and I think the soundtrack is amazing.
Props to Toto.
Props to Toto. I love this film because it's kind of bad, and because it's David Lynch. I have a soft spot for it, so...
See, I don't. I like David Lynch, but I don't think that this is...
It's not...
I think this is the worst qualities that David Lynch puts into his works, and that's the gross stuff.
Yeah, and he was not the correct director for this
I think
material.
he directed Kyle MacLachlan well.
Well, obviously, and I have to say, a lot of the actors in this film went on to continue working with him, so it wasn't necessarily working with David Lynch that was the issue for this film. I do know the studio came in a lot and interfered, because I think this is the last big studio film he did, too. After that, he financed his own films, because he just didn't want to deal with a studio again. So, yeah, I was joking. God, I can't remember who I was talking with, but it's like this was his first film in color, and the color he chose was brown because everything in this film is brown or a shade of brown. He went from black and white to sepia. So
gold,
everything
is very gilded.
When you're on Arrakis, it makes sense, and a lot of things are just kind of gaudy. Everything dealing with the Emperor is just
I think that's intentional, of course, to show the riches and their monetary power.
He does put a lot of the politics in there, but he almost puts too much of the politics in there, and a lot of times, like, the inner monologues are telling you what you need to know, but you're wondering why that person is saying that to himself when he would obviously know that. Leto is walking around going, Jessica, I should have married you, but I was looking for a political marriage. Well, what are you telling yourself for? Go tell Jessica. But I'm probably sure she knows that because she's been with you for 20 years. So there's a lot of intentional exposition that is just for the audience. The characters already know what they're talking about. It's exposition done poorly. And there is a lot of it. So, cut to 2021, where we finally, after 2 years, have, I'm going to butcher his name, Denis Villeneuve, directing Dune, Part 1. So, this is kind of unfair because we're judging an entire story in David Lynch's movie compared to half the story with this new film.
I don't think it's unfair.
This only goes halfway through the book. I didn't even realize this was part 1 until like just a couple days before.
Yeah, it was just a few. We saw it on Thursday, and it was maybe Monday or Tuesday when I realized.
When
it was
I was like, okay, we're not going to get an ending here. Oops, and we're still not guaranteed an ending. They haven't started part 2. So this one tells kind of the same story, but it tells it much better. You have...
You're giving away which one you like more. We're supposed to save that for the end.
Oops.
Yeah, because it's going to be a real mystery for people.
I think it's going to... Which one do we like better? So this kind of tells the same story. You do not have the Emperor in this at all. The Emperor is very much... You don't see the Emperor at this point.
No, you hear him talked about, referred to.
Referred to, and his herald comes to Atreides, to Caladan, which is where House Atreides... that's their home planet. To basically turn over stewardship of Arrakis to the Duke. Here it's Duke Leto, which bugged me, because I kept thinking Jared Leto. Could we go back to Leto, please? But here it's Duke Leto, played by Oscar Isaac. Okay. And then you have Timothée Chalamet playing Paul. And, oh gosh, I can't remember.
That was fantastic casting.
Yeah, all of the casting here is terrific. I don't think there's a weak link. I'm trying to think, and I don't think there's... I mean, there are characters that don't get a whole lot of screen time because this is only half the story. But I don't see any weak acting.
The casting was strong. Very
strong. You see a lot more of Caladan in this one because a good third of the film takes place on that planet before they actually go to Arrakis. You do see... And I said this I said this on a Facebook thread, that this was probably the closest that anyone was going to get to what I've imagined in my head reading the book. From the architecture to the spaceships to the look of the costumes, this is what I envisioned in my head.
That's amazing.
Yeah. With very little... I mean, Duncan Idaho probably doesn't look like I thought, but he looks like Jason Momoa, so I'm okay with it. Gurney Halleck is played by Josh Brolin, and I'm fine with that, too. There is a lot of eye candy in this film.
Oh, boy. Yes.
A lot of eye candy. So
I'm under the impression that you have to be good looking to make it in the future, unless you're the Baron.
Yeah, unless you're a Harkonnen, because here it's Duke Leto and it's the Harkonnens, not the Harkonnens. So that was kind of it kind of fell on my ears weird, and I don't know, because I'm just used to seeing the written word. I'm not sure how Herbert actually wanted it pronounced, but here it is Harkonnen. The Baron is. The Baron is much better in this film. In Lynch's film, he's played almost insane. He's grotesque. He's got... okay, so let's talk about the Barons for a moment. Because the story is basically kind of the same, except in this new movie it stops right when Paul and Jessica get to the desert and meet up with Stilgar. But other than that... I'm
interested to see where you're going with this, because...
With the two Barons?
Yes.
Okay, so Stellan Skarsgård plays the Baron in the new one.
Right.
And to me, he more fits the book Baron, where he's kind of kept in the shadows, and he's just very sinister. In the Lynch film, he's just portrayed as insane. He's flying around with his little anti-grav belt. He's taking oil showers. He's rubbing blood from some poor guy all over his face. And what kills me is Kenneth McMillan, who plays the Baron in the Lynch film, is a big guy, but he's not huge. And you can so tell it's a fat suit because there's no fat on his face. All of his fat starts at his collarbones because it's a fat suit, and once you see that, you can't unsee it. It's just like he's got a normal head and then fat all the way down. In the new movie, they have sized up Stellan Skarsgård quite a bit here, and I don't know whether it's CGI or
there have been advancements.
in visual effects. Obviously, there's been a lot of advancement in visual effects,
prosthetics.
Yeah. So, the 1984 movie looks like it was made in 1984.
To me, I disagree with you. I think it looks like it was made in maybe mid-90s.
Really?
Yeah, I think... Which is not to say that it looks modern.
No. It's got
but
that...
But it does look like they used the best stuff that they had at the time.
Yeah. There are things that I think work really well. I think the worms, when people are not on top of them, look really good. In the Lynch version.
What do they look like when you're on top of them?
When they're on top of them, it looks like a green screen. You get that nice outline, that 1980s outline carved out there. But in the new movie...
the Baron... Yeah. Did it not bother you that the way he was just eating and chewing and just... But that's trying to be gross.
I don't think he was trying to be gross there. It's not like... In the Lynch version, Raban is like eating something and stuff is falling out of his mouth and it's just deliberately disgusting. Here, the Baron is eating. And he's eating a lot, but it's not continual. That's only one scene where he's eating. The rest of the time
it was an eternity for me.
Yeah.
I could not.
But it wasn't like falling out of his mouth or dripping down his shirt or whatever. He was just eating. It reminded me a lot of the Denethor scene from... The Return of the King. I'm
going to need him to switch to smoothies in part 2.
He's got an anti-grav belt. He doesn't need to switch to smoothies. He's walking fine.
I mean, just for the lack of chewing. Give him something he don't have to chew, please.
I don't think it's fair to compare these two films as far as special effects because the new movie looks so amazing.
Right.
And I have to say... Like I said, I love the soundtrack of the 84 film. I love the new soundtrack just a tiny bit more.
I put my notes on that. The sound design.
The sound design is astounding.
If this does not win awards for sound design,
when they use the voice, because in the Lynch film, the Bene Gesserit have a what they call the voice, which is they modulate their voice in such a way to force you to do something. You don't even realize you're doing it because they've told you to do something and you just immediately do it. And it's all just inflection in their voice. The thing with Frank Herbert's Dune is you don't get a whole lot of supercomputers in it. You don't have people walking around with like little Star Trek tablets checking off, oh, we've packed the bowl or something and we're heading to Arrakis. There's not a lot because in his world they had an actual war against all of the machines. They didn't want a whole lot of machines, which is why in this world you have Thurfer Hawat, who is a Mentat, which is a human computer. He can actually do all that in his head. The Bene Gesserit don't use a device to force you to do something, they use their voice. So in the Lynch version, it's obviously just a growly type thing.
It was weird for me to see a sci-fi movie take place in the distant future and to not have like keypads at a door entry.
Yeah. There's handles on doors. They're still using knives. They've got some things like the shields.
Yeah.
But even their shields, I mean, if you're very careful, the slow blade breaks through the shield. It's not like a complete shield. Their space travel is reliant on the spice. So it's not like a warp core or anything like that. It is these,
it's a metaphor for the oil and in the Mideast.
Yeah, exactly. Because this whole thing is a metaphor for the Middle East. But it's, these mutated beings use this spice to fold space. There's no dilithium crystals or anything like that. So it is weird to see something set in the far future that the technology is probably, other than the spaceships.
Even using a poison tooth to kill somebody.
Yeah,
that's pretty archaic.
That's archaic. There's no hidden knife or anything, which is probably why he was nude in the new one to make sure he did not have any. That was just a cherry on the cake for us in the audience. But I assume that's why Leto was nude for his death scene, because they wanted to make sure he didn't have a weapon. But the weapon was in his mouth. But yeah, people use knives. There's guns and stuff, but a lot of the fighting here is done hand to hand. It's almost archaic. So that's kind of unique in a science fiction story.
The technology is in the still suit. It's in the little spy.
The little hunter-seeker?
Yeah, the hunter-seeker.
See, that's a good scene to compare the two movies, is the hunter-seeker scene, because the Harkonnens send it's a little assassination device. It's got poison on it.
It looks like maybe you would confuse it with a fly.
Yeah, in the new one. You would confuse it with an insect. In the Lynch version, it's like a flying hypodermic needle. But,
you're not fooling anybody with that.
You know immediately what it is. It sneaks into his room. It's obviously there for no good. It's going to kill him. In the Lynch version, you have this huge inner monologue with Paul saying, "It's a hunter-seeker. If I move, it will kill me. I can't move, or it will find me. Who is operating this thing?" And I'm like, oh my God, shut up. We know what it is. You don't have to continually tell us.
It was helpful to hear the term hunter-seeker, and that's it.
Yeah.
I could gauge by his lack
reaction
of moving that it was detecting motion.
Yeah.
So
in the new one,
I didn't need that spelled out.
In the new one, you get no inner monologue. He kind of hides behind because he's watching a kind of a generated film thing of Arrakis, and he kind of hides behind the visual. But when he moves, it immediately starts going toward him. But it's a bad thing. It's trying to kill him. There's this lack of just intense information being thrown at you, which is what you get with the Lynch film. Every minute of it is somebody just inner monologuing.
Yeah.
it gets funny after a while. It gets really funny. I wish this was Paul. Even Sting has to inner monologue while he's killing somebody. It's just...
Was his even inner monologue, or was he just talking?
No, he did have a couple of inner monologues,
okay,
and then he just started screaming at the end, where he's
his performance
is
was
over the top,
a bit overdone. Several
of the performances were overdone. I will say the Lynch version does explain mentats better, because the new film they don't. You're kind of like, well, you kind of get what they do, but they're not. I don't even think they mention the word mentat. So it's just these guys that occasionally their eyes sink to the back of their head and they do calculations. So you kind of get what they're doing, but you don't understand why.
Mm-hmm. That's
or
true.
What exactly. And like I said, this is only half the story. But you do get things from the book that weren't in the Lynch version. In this new film, when Paul and Jessica meet up with Stilgar, they are not like, well, we'll just accept you. Yeah, sure. Paul has to fight a Fremen to the death, and this was someone he had actually been having visions of, and he thought was going to be a teacher, and instead this guy challenges him to a fight to the death, and he ends up having to kill him. Chani isn't immediately like, oh, tell me of your homeworld, Usul. She's
nicer than I would be.
True. But she's also not... she gives him a knife to fight with, but she thinks he's going to die. So it's like, well...
Yeah, and he is cute.
Yeah. It'll be an honor for you to die with this in your hand. Like, wow. You really think highly of my fighting skills, I guess.
Yeah.
You do get a bit more of the weirding way, which is the Bene Gesserit kind of hand-to-hand combat.
Yeah.
Which is nice.
I feel like you got a lot more of that.
Yeah, in the Lynch version, he bypasses that completely and uses a weirding module, which is an actual handheld weapon that they use. That is nowhere in the book.
Mm.
I think he felt it looked better if they had an actual weapon. But no, they use what they call the weirding way, which is kind of hand-to-hand combat, and then the use of the voice.
And they have the hand signals are Bene Gesserit, right?
Yeah, the hand signals...
I'm doing
Jessica,
it. Yeah. I'm doing it with my fingers right now.
You can't see us. Jessica uses a lot of hand signals to clue in Paul when something is happening.
And I have to say that's really the only time this movie has subtitles. And my really only criticism is that the entire movie needed subtitles.
There were, yeah. I think like when Dr. Yui talks to Paul, he talks in Mandarin. And that's subtitled, okay. But that is to shield what he's saying, basically.
I'm the kind of person that when I watch a movie at home, I'm turning the English subtitles on for everything that I watch, and I missed that seeing this in the theater. There
are a couple of instances like the Sardaukar, when they go to the Sardaukar home planet, which God, I hope they go. If we get a part 2, please go there again, because that whole sound design was amazing when they were there. But the Sardaukar speak with a very thick accent. And it was kind of difficult to actually gauge what some of them were saying. The Sardaukar actually, I liked in the new film. They seemed far more lethal. And they also...
They seemed animalistic.
Yeah. They also... It was nice that... because when Peter DeVries goes to the Sardaukar homeworld to, say the Emperor is giving us 3 legions. Why do you? They ask him why you need legions, because you outnumber the Atreides. And Peter DeVries, I don't know. Do they pronounce? Well, I don't even know if his name is spoken in the new one. It's either Peter DeVries or Peter DeVries.
Piter.
I think it's Piter.
They call him Piter. They call somebody Piter.
Okay, so it's Piter. He says, yes, but the Atreides are trained by Gurney Halleck and Duncan Idaho. So they recognize the fact that the Atreides have much better training. And that's something because the Duke is a far nicer person than the Baron ever would be. So your men are going to fight more for you if you're actually likable and you treat them with respect. Than say a Baron who's just going to like, oh, you're not doing your job, I'm sending you to some planet where you're just going to die. So, yeah, is nice. It's also nice that when Leto gets to Arrakis, he immediately tries to meet up with the Fremen to join an alliance, because he realizes that it's a trap. He knows he's walking into a trap. Unfortunately, the trap was just sprung far quicker than he imagined, because Dr. Yui turned traitor.
Right, but up until that point, he was really playing his cards very well.
Yeah.
Josh Brolin was ready to take a few people down, and he stopped them. He's like, no, we're going to hear this out.
Hear this out, yeah. Because Stilgar, they keep the spitting scene, which I really like, because in the Lynch film, Leto, because it's Leto in that film, doesn't meet Stilgar at all. You don't have that meeting where Stilgar comes in, because Stilgar comes in, he's a Fremen, he's lived in the desert all his life, he immediately spits on the table. And this is a very, distinguished greeting for a Fremen, because he's giving you his body water, which is a
precious commodity.
Yeah. When people die in the desert, they don't just bury you, they carry you back to their village so they could extract all of the water from your body. Nothing goes to waste. He comes in and he spits on the table, and they're about ready to kill him because he just spit at their duke. But no, that is a very, very revered greeting for them. It's like, I respect you. Here, have some spit. So there's a lot of things, little things that are added in the new movie that I think make more sense to be in the movie and add to the world building. Whereas with the Lynch film, it was just like, here, have a shit ton of information.
You're absolutely right. I cannot disagree with anything that you're saying.
And I'm not saying I dislike the Lynch film, because I know certain people hate the Lynch film and refuse to watch the Lynch film. And
I'm not in that camp either.
Yeah, refused to be on our podcast about Dune because he wouldn't watch the Lynch film. Seed. But it's just not what Dune is in my mind. Whereas this new movie is very much what I think of as Dune.
I loved this movie. Obviously, this is the winner for me.
Yeah, the movie, hands down, is the winner.
I just enjoyed it so much. I would love to get a prequel. I know this is not going to happen. This is just me fantasizing. Okay. I would love a prequel about Duncan and a prequel about Jessica.
Now, book-wise, they do have actually... I do believe they wrote a Jessica book. Because Frank Herbert wrote 6 Dune books. Dune, Children of Dune, Dune Messiah, God Emperor, Chapter House, maybe 5. And then his son, Brian Herbert, with Kevin J. Anderson, wrote a ton.
Volume?
Yeah. I think they're up to 12 or 13 now. With prequels and sequels.
I might have to check into a few of the prequels.
Because I know they did a history of the Bene Gesserit. I think they did a Jessica prequel. Duncan Idaho, spoilers for anyone who has never read the books, dies in this one, but he comes back. He comes back in the second one and dies again and again and again and again, because Ilea...
Jason Momoa should be familiar with that.
Yeah, Ilea keeps cloning him. So Duncan Idaho actually becomes an incredibly important character in the series, even though he dies in this one.
Ilea is not used in this.
No. Paul has a vision of her as a baby, which is how he knows his mother's pregnant. But you don't see her in this one, other than that vision. You don't see... I mean, let's face it, Chani, Zendaya's on film for what?
I mean, when you watch the trailers... You see every scene that Zendaya is in.
Yeah, basically.
Except for, 1 or 2 speaking lines.
She gets the voiceover at the very beginning, kind of explaining Arrakis and Dune. In the Lynch version... Now, the Lynch version we watched, and I probably should say this because there's 3 or 4 different versions of the Lynch Dune. One of which he has completely removed his name from. It's directed by Alan Smithy, I believe. Princess Erlon, the Emperor's daughter, actually has the voiceover at the very beginning where she explains the great houses and Dune and the spice. which is also not named in the new one. The spice actually has a name. It's melange, and they don't say that in the new one.
They call it. They just
call it spice. And sometimes that's easiest. Let's not give it two terms when you don't have to.
Let me ask you something. How exhausting would you be to just be stoic? That stoic every freaking minute of your life. Every single character in this movie
is
stoic. The entire movie, apart from Duncan, who gets to have some lighthearted.
Who's basically Jason Momoa.
And there's one time that Paul smiles to himself, and then he wipes it away real quick.
But he is he's happy to see Duncan.
Yes.
He's happy to see Thurber
But you
Hawa.
see it from behind.
Yeah.
You see him run towards them from behind, so you don't see his face.
And I understand it's the situation, because they know they're going into a trap. So everyone has to be, on their guard or whatever, but it is an incredibly serious film. Everyone is very serious. There's not a whole lot of smiling going on.
I would be exhausted.
Yeah.
I'd be like, I'm gonna take it out.
Could somebody please just sing a song or something? But no, cue the Sonic car guys doing the throat singing while people are slaughtered and blood.
Never mind. No songs.
No songs. We're fine. Stop killing people.
The Baron listens to classical music while he's drinking blood from somebody
to,
he
Katy
just
Perry. Kissed a girl. Behind closed doors with the Baron, he's all just bopping around with his little belt, halfway up the ceiling.
Me.
Next up, Billie Eilish, 'cause I'm a bad guy.
He definitely jams out to that.
But yeah, my main quibble with the new film is that because it's only half the story, several of these characters don't get a whole lot of screen time. You don't have a whole lot of Stilgar, or Chani, or even Gurney Halleck. Because a lot of their stuff comes in the second half of the film.
I'm fine with that. Gives me something to look forward to.
Yeah, just give us part 2, please.
Yes, now.
Yes, now. Get started on it now. Because, like I said in my review,
I don't have plans Friday.
2,
so
if I don't get part 2, I'm going to riot and I'm going to have to kidnap each and every one of these cast members, and they're going to have to act it out in my living room. So
you're gonna disrupt Spice production.
I'm gonna disrupt Spice production and go kidnap Dave Bautista.
Oh goodness!
So the new film wins, hands down.
Hands down.
Not to say I won't continue to watch the Lynch film, because when I want a good laugh, I'll just put that on and just watch everybody inner monologue for 2 hours. But yeah, so that is Dune.
We're going to do Village of the Damned after this? Okay.
We'll do Village of the Damned next, since we put it off to watch the Dunes. Dune and Dune Part 1. God, that Part 1 kills me. Give me Part 2. Okay, and with that, we will let the Harkonnens back to their spice, and while the Atreides are gone, so...
Have at it, guys. Surf on some worms or something.
That's right. Have fun surfing those worms. Bye, everybody.
Bye.